Madison, Dr. Reddick. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for allowing me to review your 2D and 3D analysis. What I'm going to do is review 12 hitting inhibitors that can impact your power, contact, as well as your efficiency. And we'll start off with looking at if you have a sway or not. And sway just signifies a weight shift. And I did it again, and I did not get the full capture there. So we're going to switch over to the 3D. And the negative move is any move away from the body. And so let's see if I can get this to work. Oh, don't fail me now. So any movement away from the body. So you do have a negative move there. And I think your knee is in an okay position. All right. And so what we do, actually, knee might go a little further than we wanted. So there might be a little sway here. And so you flex that knee. And so what we do, you're cutting it close. So we say if that knee crosses the line or touches the line, there's a little bit. And so if I position it at the outside of your ankle, and even though you do turn your foot out, we don't want it going outside, the weight outside the ankle. And so in that initial view, if you look, you start your, you can actually see the movement of your knee here. So here you can see your knee, right knee. It does go out the screen a little bit, but you can see that flexion of the knee outside. Right there. You see that little knee, how it kind of buckles out? So you do have a little bit of a sway there, all right? And that's just letting me know that that weight shift is going a little bit too lateral, all right? Next, what we do is we look for loss of posture. And so we get you going from that negative move here. And what I do is I draw a line between your right eye and your waist. And we want you in an attacking position, so a little bit leaning forward. And you can see here, you're leaning back there. So if I go to heel plant, kind of same thing. So at heel plant, we're okay with you leaning back, but kind of toe touch, we don't want you leaning back. Let me go back here. I'm sorry having to go back and forth. All right, so let's go see if you actually take a step forward, or do you just, I guess you kind of go not towards the base, but you move it forward. All right, let me see if I see that on the other one. And so let's see what that foot does. All right, so the little movement of the foot. But I would say you're not in a attacking position at this point in time. You are leaning back. What we would like to see is kind of a forward lean, and then a reverse lean. I'm exaggerating this, but in different parts of the frame, we want you forward, and then as you plant, we want it going back there. All right. And so next thing I'm looking for is what we refer to as dead hands. And so we want separation of the hands from the face there. And again, I'm going to have to go back here. And I don't think we saw much separation there. So here, some movement. Yeah, so there's no real movement of your elbow there. So ideally, so when we did that separation test, I had you put the bat next to your neck and then push out to the side. That's what we call the separation test. We actually want to see that within the swing because that elastic stretch generates energy, and it's energy that you can transfer into your swing. And so looking at your physical screen, you did have a little bit trouble with that separation test. And so what your body is saying, hey, I can't do that motion, so I'm just going to get in that position or a position because I can't stretch my hands out. And so there is some compensation there. And sometimes when that happens, the body, does what it needs to do, but you lose power, you lose efficiency, and it can impact your swing. So loss of posture, dead hands. Next thing we look for is loss of base. And sorry, I'm having to go back and forth between these. And so what we look for here is, where is that left knee pointing? Looks like it is pointing over your toes. So is your right. Typically we'll see it pointing straight ahead. So I'll just kind of have the coaches comment on that. That may be a normal variation. Hanging back, and so what we do is, this one's always a little tricky, especially with those who pivot on their back foot like you do. So 90 degrees. So typically when I do this, we check hanging back from negative move to contact, and we really don't want that foot to cross the line, because we want your weight going forward and we want you to end up on your toes, not so much toes flexed. So I will say there may be a little question about the weight shift, and that does go a little bit with the sway. And so you are swaying, if you're looking at the camera, to the left. Remember how I said your knee goes back? And so it doesn't seem like you're fully transferring your weight towards the pitcher. And so those two go along together, or can go along together, I should say. And next thing I want to see what's your elbow doing? All right, we're going to look at your elbow in a couple of different frames. So I want to make sure it's passing across that hip okay. So if it gets stuck on the white there, then I'm concerned. Excuse me, but you're doing pretty good. I also want to make sure at toe touch you don't have a flying elbow. We're going to call this toe touch. Your elbow is good, and I'm going to have it go a few frames and make sure you're not pushing through. And so really what we're looking for is the elbow still flaring, and you're doing pretty good there. And here the elbow is aligned. Yeah, I'm going to look at your 3D. Maybe you're kind of getting ahead of yourself with the upper body. We'll see. I could be wrong. It looks like your hips are doing pretty good. All right, we'll look at the 3D on that one. But no evidence of a flying elbow, no evidence of a push, no evidence of dumping the barrel, so the barrel's in front of the hands. And then the last thing we look for is drifting, which we know you don't do, meaning that your body weight goes that way because you have the hanging back, all right? And so here, and then what I want you to do is you rotate around that line, and you see how you actually come off the line there? That verifies that you do have, that you're hanging back, and you're not having appropriate weight shift to that front side, all right? So next we're going to go to the rear view. And we're just looking for two things here on the rear view. So as your positive move, the contact, we're going to draw a line down your glutes here. And then for the most part, we don't want you too much space in between that line and your glutes. And you're just slightly off. So we take you here to contact. And you know, it may just, could be, so let's see here. You definitely go forward, you come off a little bit. You're not too far off. You're actually probably the closest to the seat of all the ladies. Because afterwards, it's okay if it comes off. But you see how you do come off that line just a little bit. And that partly related to your pelvic rotation. You did have some limitation in your pelvic rotation. And so what that does is it throws your hips towards the ball, so it gives you less space for your hands to clear there. So if you got an inside pitch, they could easily jam you and your body wouldn't be able to adjust to it, all right? Next thing we do is look for casting of the hands. And with that, we just don't want you to throw your hands too far forward. We kind of take it a toe touch, heel plant, and see how the elbow is outside of the hands or closer to the ball. That's exactly what we want. So you're doing great from that standpoint. Next, we're going to switch over to the 2D analysis. And so this here lets me know how well you're separating your upper body from your lower body. And so after the swing, you definitely get some separation. But before the swing, kind of very little activity going on. And that's important because as you develop that coil, you generate energy and then you release the energy on the swing. So our goal would be to increase your X factor. And it looks like it's, for the most part, all coming from your hips. So thoracic wise, you're able to separate, but your hips, they're just silent, okay? And then what we're going to do is kind of look at the larger graph here, the messier one. And so what we do is we're looking at your sequencing. And so when we look at these here, the red is your lead arm, the green is your shoulder or your trunk, and then the orange is your pelvis, all right? And so we want them at the peaks, sequencing wise, we actually want the orange to peak first, but as you can see, it's peaking last. Then we want the green to peak second. It is, but it's after the pelvis. And then lastly, we want your arms to peak from a sequencing standpoint. And so your sequencing is backwards. And so that means you're pretty much all arm and not getting appropriate transfer. So that's a major power leak right there. All right. And so let me see if I can show you here. We got you a little bit out of frame. But if we go here, what we're seeing, this may not come out as well because you're partially out of the screen. But if you look at, so here are your hips here are your shoulders. There's a little bit of turn. For whatever reason, it didn't show up greatly on the 3D piece. But as you can see, how your shoulders and your hips, they're kind of, to some degrees, swinging at the same time. Ideally, what we would like to see is the hips go first, the trunk, and then the shoulders catch up. Now, obviously, the shoulders will be going a lot faster because it just has further to go. But you can see on the 3D, it's just almost like you're moving in one unit. And so our goal is to create a coil. But again, if you have trouble rotating those hips, then you're going to be hard to get that X factor, to get that true coil and energy. And so doing the corrective exercises is going to be key for you. Really focus on activating those hip muscles and firing those hip muscles and getting that rotation. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll be in contact. Take care of yourself.